I'm still pretty pumped up from Thomas' lesson. And what it does whenever I hear a lesson like that is it reconvicts me. And as I think about the word restore, something hidden in the word restore is that something was lost. Because when you restore something, you're bringing it back or you're finding something, just like Tim Burrow talked about restoring a car. And when you think about where we are in the church, there are some things that definitely need to be restored. And sometimes things need to be restored because we forgot about things. And as I think about what Carrie said in chapel on Wednesday morning, he talked about how nostalgia sometimes can be an enemy to progress. And many times it's easy for us to think about how things were, and I believe that we serve a God, a resurrected Jesus, who believes the best days for us are yet ahead. And as I see these young people beginning to make their way into this room, I believe that that's something that needs to be restored. I believe we need to restore faith in our young people and believe in the power of what they're able to do as they go into all the world and share the gospel. I had something that resonated with me last week. The Amers took a trip to Mexico City. And one of the things that isn't super common is for somebody to join us on the trip. And there was a missionary kid named Lucas McKinney who joined us on the trip. And the way it worked out was his dad mentioned to me that he may be interested in going to AIM. And I said, well, how is he going to get to Mexico City? And he said, well, I'll just send him. And I'm thinking, he's a 16-year-old boy, and this dad's just going to put him on a plane and send him to Mexico City. And I think, where have we gone? Because I have a son that's 17, and I'm like, I don't know if I would put him on a plane and just send him to another country. And then I think about World War II, when young men of 18 years of age were fighting all across Europe. And I think if they could do things like that then in a physical battle, couldn't we send young 18, 19-year-olds, 17-year-olds into all the world for a spiritual battle? And we're not just going to send them out there unprepared. We're going to spend time with them for 8 months, preparing them to go on this journey. And so I have a challenge for you this morning. This morning we have 47 young men and women who are here for our Camp Adventure weekend. These students that are coming in carrying these flags, they are not AIM students, they are campers in our Camp Adventure, casting the vision of what is their future going to look like. And one of the things that I would like for us to restore is a vision for the spiritual and not just a vision for the physical. Because one of the things that I think we face very often is, as these young people have a heart and a desire to go into the world and live on mission with Jesus, that in the next few years, they're going to be tempted not to go on this journey because they'll be encouraged to pursue higher education, to pursue their career, to pursue something more to set them up to be better off in this physical world that they live in. And brothers and sisters, what I want to say to you is that they can have both. I'm not against those things, but one of the things that I am very much for is that this younger generation be prepared to survive in this world and be faithful for the rest of their lives. Because I want to tell you something that's super important. That the love that they have for Jesus right here in their heart, when they go into this world and they cannot cognitively defend the faith that they have, they will fall away. And one of the things that I love about what Thomas has been talking about these last two moments, these last two mornings, is he's setting the young people up to not just have a love for Jesus, but to defend the love of Jesus that they have. And if they're not able to defend the love of Jesus in a cognitive way, sadly, they will fall away. And as I look at this generation, we have more and more people falling away. And here we have in this place, a place to train them. We teach them historical Christian evidences. We teach them how to share the gospel. And whenever they graduate from this program, whether they stay in full-time ministry or whether they go off on to college and careers, they're going to be ambassadors for Christ and on mission for Jesus, and they will not fall away. I'm curious, raise your hands if you're a youth minister. Raise your hands if you're involved in full-time ministry. Yeah. And this is my challenge for you for next year. Is even though we have 47 that are here for our Camp Adventure weekend, can you imagine what it would be like if that was even doubled? And it's super simple to double that. All we have to do is invite more people. But I want you to think about this. Have you guys felt spiritually fed in the short time that you've been here at the workshop? Imagine what it would be like if you brought your young people here as well, and while you're being ministered to and while you're being spiritually fed here, we're spiritually feeding them over in Camp Adventure Weekend at the same time. I want to share a story with you. And we have one of the joys that I get to have of being with as I go through the application process with the Aimers, I get to read stories. And a lot of times I'll read a story of why a person wants to come into AIM, and I'll run and I'll share it with Pat or Robbie and say, hey, look at this story. Listen to why this person wants to be here. And we have students in this present AIM class who, one was the valedictorian of her school. Others were on scholarship for different sports, and yet they could have chosen to do that, but it was a passion that they had to want to come into this ministry and be trained so that they can go on this mission. Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it? I also want to tell you a story about a guy named Mike Kakis. Mike Kakis, he came to Camp Adventure because he didn't have anything else to do. And the youth minister in Wasilla, Alaska said, hey, why don't you go on this trip? And he's like, well, I just don't want to, I don't know what I want to do, but it's a free trip, and so we'll see what happens. And so he came on the trip. And he came to Camp Adventure, and his life was changed forever. He came to Camp Adventure, and then he decided to go into AIM. And then after he went into AIM, they sent him to South Africa, and he did an amazing job in South Africa. And then after he finished that, he came into the School of Biblical Studies and studied here. And then after that, he went back to Alaska, and he's working with all of the churches in Alaska. Now he's an AIM coordinator, and he's coordinating AIMers. And his intentions weren't right whenever he came to this program, but whenever he showed up to Camp Adventure, because of the power of the Word and the power of the experience, his life was changed forever. And so this is what I want to say to you in the audience is, bring us your youth next year, and we don't care what their motivation is. Because we believe in the power of God, and we believe that the power of God is going to change them. As you look at these young men and women standing before you, what encouragement are you going to give them to go on and take part in being part of the mission of Jesus? Because I promise you they're going to be tempted to do other things. And it makes me wonder, there's a statement that says, sometimes I sacrifice the things that I want for the things that I want more. But lately I've been thinking about, are the things that I want the same things that God wants? And you see, sometimes we have this mindset that God always gets what he wants. But this is the reality, God doesn't always get what he wants. And I'll give you an example. Does God want all men to be saved and to come to a knowledge of the truth? He does. Will all men be saved and come to a knowledge of the truth? But if we partner with him, will more people be saved and come to a knowledge of the truth? And that's what we need. We need a generation, and we need to restore a generation of young people who are going to go out into all the world and share the gospel and be faithful for the rest of their life. And so I want to commend these young people, just this step of faith. They don't even know what's ahead of them, but just the fact that they're holding a flag possibly is a step of faith saying, I will go in all the world and preach the gospel. And so over the next few days, all they've had is a meal and an orientation. They haven't even gotten into the meat of what this experience is going to be. But I want us to be praying for these young people that God will be changing their lives and preparing them to go out into all the world and share the gospel. So let's give it up for these young people that are standing here today. Take a seat, please. Presently, as we speak, we have 47 AIM students who are spread all over the world sharing the gospel right now. And this afternoon, we'll have the opportunity to pray for all of them and read letters that they've sent to us for this Camp Adventure weekend. But here sitting in some of these front rows right here, we have this present class who is beginning to they've just entered into their mission term, and around the middle of May, they will be sent off, and they will be going into all different parts of the world. And I'll ask this present AIM class, will you please stand? These young men and women are going to be going to Commerce, Texas, Homestead, Florida, João Pessoa, Brazil, Leicester, England, Mexico City, Mexico, Phoenix, Arizona, San Cristobal, Mixco, Guatemala, and Wasilla, Alaska. That's where Mike Kakis is. And as I think about this, I think about Nat Cooper. And in 1976, he stood right here where I am right now. And the very first AIM team had just come back from the field. And he gave a speech about us having faith in our young people. Sometimes as we get older, we can become very cynical and lose faith of what God can do in a generation of people who want to reach out in faith and do amazing things for the kingdom. And I think that that's something that needs to be restored, is our faith in this ministry, in our faith in these people, in our faith in God to send them out. And as I think about Joseph McKinney sending Lucas McKinney on an airplane to meet with us in Mexico City, I just think I could do that with my child, because I believe in the power of God, and I believe that believe in what he can do. Jesus in Luke chapter 10, verse 2 says, "The harvest is plentiful, but the workers are few. Therefore, ask the Lord of the harvest to send forth workers into the harvest field." Ladies and gentlemen, we have workers for the harvest. And we need to be reminded that we do not have a harvest problem, but we have a worker problem. And so, genuinely, I mean it, we do not care about their motivation when they come. But their motivation will change after they've even spent 2 days with us, just like it did for Mike Kakis. And the thing that's so cool to me is Mike Kakis isn't an anomaly. that we've seen this happen year after year after year. Billy McGuigan's going to be speaking with them, and this year's theme for Camp Adventure is Jesus Is. And we're going to be focusing on the I am statements in the Gospel of John. And they will come away from that experience knowing more and understanding more who Jesus is. But even more than that, they'll understand more who they are because of who Jesus is. Jeff Smith is going to be coming up in just a moment to lead us in a song. And as he leads us in this song, these young men and women are going to begin exiting out. And as they exit out, I just want you to commit to pray for them. Because as we have this theme this weekend of restore, we need to restore the faith that we have in our young people, because our young people for 45 years now have been doing amazing things in this ministry in the name of Jesus.
Mighty to sing. Sing with me. Everyone needs compassion, a love that's never failing. Let mercy fall on me. Everyone needs forgiveness, the kindness of a Savior, the hope of nations. Savior, He can move the mountains. My God is mighty to save. He is mighty to save forever. Author of salvation. He rose and conquered the grave. Jesus conquered the grave. So take me as you find me. All my fears and failures. Fill my life again. I give my life to follow everything I believe in. Now I surrender. Savior, He can move the mountains. My God is mighty to save. He is mighty to save forever. Author of salvation. He rose and conquered the grave. Jesus conquered the grave. Shine your light and let the whole world see. We're singing for the glory of the risen King. Jesus, shine your light and let the whole world see. We're singing for the glory of the risen King. Savior, He can move the mountains. My God is mighty to save. He is mighty to save forever. Author of salvation. He rose and conquered the grave. Jesus conquered the grave. I think we have some kind of pollen or something going through the air. As I get older, pollen affects me more and more. One of the negatives of being blessed to teach in AIM is Aimers come. One of the things that's sort of a blessing and a curse is Aimers go. This AIM class is really special. I think all of us here would say that. I was at a congregation the other day and they said, what are we going to do in the church because of the caliber of our young people today? And I said, that's easy. We're going to thrive. I am sick to death of hearing people talking about our young people and millennials and all these things in the Lord's church. If you think they're our weakness, you've completely misread the situation. We have a group of young people growing up in the church that are most socially conscious, most volunteering, the most world-changing group I think I've ever seen come through. And I have high expectations, and I really believe those expectations will be met. And I think we need to pray that this spirit continues. And if you're one of those who is worried about the future, your grandparents were too. When they looked at your generation, they went, well, here it goes. You know, this isn't going to work. I still remember when I began preaching, someone said, well, we hope you stay biblical because, younger people are straying from the truth. And I thought, they've been saying this since, Moses was there. They thought, well, he's old, but he's going to be followed by Joshua. This guy's got all sorts of trouble. But I really think we need to appreciate what we have, and the fact that these young folks come here and they don't just go to Camp Adventure and have good lessons. They work while they're here. They learn while they're here. I'm just extremely, extremely grateful.